I stared at it, stunned. I didn't dare move closer because I could feel perfectly that between us stood it, the invisible one, hiding me from myself. 1885. Guy de Maupassant writes a short, cruel, essential story. He simply titles it Letter from a Madman and publishes it for the first time in a French magazine. Who is Guy de Maupassant? He was a fragile, excessive man, obsessed with life and death. Born in Normandy in 1850, Guy de Maupassant became one of the greatest masters of the short story. A sharp pen, a tormented mind. He wrote tales of solitude, madness, and fear. He wrote about the unbearable weight of existence. He wrote because he couldn't help it, because life crushed him, and the only way to survive was to tell it, like a muffled cry. Letter from a Madman is exactly that, a cry in the dark. The protagonist addresses his doctor. Dear doctor, I am in your hands. Do with me what you will. Here is the full and detailed account of the strange affliction tormenting my mind. I lived like everyone else, looking at life with the open yet blind eyes of men, without wonder and without understanding. I lived like beasts do, like most people, fulfilling all the duties of life, observing and thinking I was seeing, thinking I knew, thinking I understood what surrounded me, until one day I realized I had been wrong about everything. It was this phrase by Montesquieu that suddenly opened my mind. One more or one less organ in our machine would have given us a different intelligence. Therefore, all laws based on a particular organization of our machine would be different if our machine were structured differently. I pondered this for months and months, and little by little a strange clarity came over me, and that clarity obscured everything else. In truth, it is only through our organs that we connect to the external world. I mean that the inner being, which forms the self, is in contact, via certain nervous filaments, with the outer image that constitutes the world. Well then, not only does this external being elude us through its proportions, its duration, its countless and obscure properties, its origins, its future and its purposes, its distant forms and infinite manifestations, but our organs, even of the small part of the world we can know, provide us only with partial and modest data. Let me explain more clearly. The eye gives us size, shape, and color, and it deceives us on all three counts. It can only reveal to us objects and beings of medium size, those proportioned to the scale of a human, which has led us to call certain things large and others small, merely because its weakness prevents it from perceiving what is too vast or too minuscule. As a result, it knows and sees almost nothing. Nearly the entire universe remains unknown to it, from the star flickering in the far distance to the microorganism contained in a drop of water. Even if it had a power 100 million times greater than normal, even if it could distinguish, in the air we breathe, the full variety of invisible beings and the inhabitants of nearby worlds, there would still exist infinite species of even smaller creatures and worlds so distant that it could never reach them. Therefore, all our ideas of proportion are misleading, because it is impossible to determine the infinitely large or the infinitely small. The method we use to define size and shape has no absolute value, as it is based solely on the capacity of a single organ and on constant comparison with our own scale of judgment. Let us add that the eye is also incapable of seeing transparency. A flawless pane of glass deceives it. It confuses it with the air, which it also cannot see. Let us move on to color. Color exists because our eye is structured in such a way that it transmits to the brain, as color, the various ways in which bodies absorb and decompose, according to their chemical composition, the rays of light that strike them. The degrees of this absorption and decomposition are what we perceive as shades. Therefore, this organ compels the mind to perceive according to its own specific way of seeing, or more precisely, its arbitrary way of assessing dimensions and establishing the relationships between light and matter. Let us examine hearing, that capricious organ. Two objects collide, producing oscillations in the air. This movement causes a certain membrane in our ear to tremble, which instantly transforms what is, in reality, merely a vibration into sound. Nature is silent, but the eardrum possesses the astonishing ability to transmit to us, under the form of sounds, and different sounds depending on the number of vibrations, every oscillation of the invisible waves in space. This metamorphosis, produced by the auditory nerve in the short distance from ear to brain, has allowed us to create a strange art, vague like a dream, yet precise like algebra, the most poetic and exact of all: music. What can we say of taste and smell? Could we distinguish perfumes and the quality of food without the peculiar properties of our nose and palate? Humanity would still exist without hearing, without taste, and without smell. That is, without any notion of sound, flavor, or scent. Therefore, if we had one organ fewer, we would remain ignorant of admirable and singular things. But if we had one more, we would discover around us an infinity of other things we would never suspect, simply because we lack the instruments to perceive them. Therefore, we deceive ourselves when we judge the known world, and we are surrounded by the unexplored unknown. Therefore, everything is uncertain and can be interpreted in endlessly different ways. Everything is false, everything is possible, everything is uncertain. Let us reinforce this reasoning with an old formula. Truth on this side of the Pyrenees, falsehood on the other. And let us say, truth within our organ, error beyond it. 2 + 2 does not necessarily make 4 outside of our atmosphere. Truth on earth, error further away. Therefore, the glimpsed mysteries, like electricity, hypnotic sleep, the transmission of will, suggestion, magnetism, remain inscrutable for one simple reason. Nature has not granted us the organ or organs capable of understanding them. After convincing myself that everything my senses reveal exists only for me and exists as I perceive it, and that it would be entirely different for another being differently constructed, I made a superhuman effort to grasp the unknown that surrounds me. Have I gone mad? I am surrounded by things I do not know, I told myself. I imagined a man without ears, trying to decipher sound as we attempt to unravel so many inscrutable mysteries. A man who perceives acoustic phenomena without being able to define their nature or origin. And I became afraid of everything around me, afraid of the air I breathe, afraid of the dark. Since we can know almost nothing, and since everything is infinite, what remains? The void? What is in the apparent void? And this vague terror of the supernatural that has haunted mankind since the dawn of time is more than legitimate, because the supernatural is simply that which is unknown to us. Then I understood what fear truly is. I believed I was always on the verge of piercing some secret of the universe. I tried to refine my senses, to stir them, to make them perceive, if only for an instant, the invisible. Everything is a being, I told myself. The cry that tears through the air is a being, comparable to an animal, for it is born, it moves, it transforms, and then vanishes. Therefore, the disturbed mind that believes in incorporeal beings is not mistaken. Who are they? How many men sense them, shudder at their approach, tremble at their imperceptible touch? We feel them looming, but we cannot discern them, because we do not have the eye that would see them, or rather, the unknown organ capable of revealing them. I cannot say what they are, but I can always signal their presence, and I have seen an invisible being, as far as it is possible to see such beings. I spent entire nights motionless, seated at my desk, my head in my hands, haunted by a single thought: them. Often I believed that an impalpable hand, or rather an elusive body, brushed lightly against my hair. It didn't touch me, not having a physical form, but something imponderable, transcendent. One evening I heard the floorboards creak behind me. It creaked in a strange way. I trembled. I turned around. I saw nothing, and I thought no more of it. But the next day, at the same hour, I heard the exact same noise. I was so frightened that I stood up, convinced, absolutely convinced, that someone else was in the room. 2 lamps lit the corners. The sound did not return, and little by little I calmed down. Yet I remained uneasy, turning around frequently. The following day, I shut myself in my room early, determined to find a way to see the invisible visitor. And I did see it. I nearly died on the spot. I had lit all the candles in the fireplace and the chandelier. The room was as bright as day. 2 lamps burned on my desk. In front of me stood an old 4-poster oak bed. To the right, the fireplace. To the left, the door, double locked. Behind me, a massive mirrored wardrobe. I looked into it. My eyes looked strange. My pupils were greatly dilated. Then I sat down as usual. The night before and the night before that, the sound had occurred at exactly 22 minutes past 9. I waited. When the moment came, I felt an indescribable sensation, like a fluid, an irresistible fluid, had entered me through every part of my flesh. A dreadful yet ecstatic fear pinned me in place, and then the creak came again, right beside me. I jumped up, turning around so quickly I nearly fell. The room was as bright as daylight, yet I did not see my reflection in the mirror. The mirror was empty, clear, flooded with light. It was not there, though I stood directly in front of it. I stared at it, stunned. I didn't dare move closer because I could feel, perfectly, that between us stood it, the invisible one, hiding me from myself. I literally soiled myself. At one point, I began to see myself in a mist at the back of the mirror, a mist like water, and it seemed to me that this water was flowing slowly from left to right, gradually sharpening my outline. It was like the end of an eclipse. What had hidden me had no clear shape, only a sort of transparency, gray, opaque, becoming less and less elusive. And finally, I could clearly see myself, just as I do every day when I look in the mirror. I had seen it. I never saw it again. But I wait for it still, and I feel my mind wavering in this anguished expectation. I remain for hours, nights, days, weeks, before the mirror, waiting for it. It no longer comes. It realized I had seen it, but I will wait forever, until death. I will wait without pause, before this mirror, like a hunter in ambush. And in this mirror, I have begun to see mad visions, monsters, hideous corpses, all manner of terrifying beasts and atrocious beings, all the unspeakable hallucinations that must crowd the minds of the insane. This is my confession, dear doctor. Tell me, what must I do? Shortly before sinking into the madness that would consume the final years of his life, Maupassant left us this story as a warning, a brief, unsettling journey into the human mind, a plunge into primordial fears, a harrowing reflection on the limits of perception. To lose touch with reality, to wander through the shadows of doubt and hallucination, until one no longer knows what is visible and what is invisible, what is real and what is imagined. But who can truly say where reality ends and the unknown begins? Our understanding of the world is fragile, partial, imperfect. Absolute truth escapes us. Perhaps the madman is the one who has seen too much, the one who dared to look beyond the veil. The doubt remains. But what if it were true?